What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Today we are moving along with our trench diorama build, so let's go ahead and grab the TIE fighters and get started. Now, as you can see, we're picking up where we left off last episode, so we have our TIE fighters built and painted, at least for the black solar panel area. We also our TIE Advanced, same thing. We also went ahead and grabbed 3 bases out of other Bandai kits and we've mounted them in our custom bases. We still have to finish off the TIE fighters and then eventually cast the bases and make that actually work. But, well, we have a long way to go, and today we're going to get a little bit closer. As you can see, we have each of our bases plugged, so we don't have that locating tab right there open, so that should be good. And we've done the most we can do here in terms of making these solid and secure, so they're nicely glued together, and then we've mounted the base down to it temporarily with some super glue. So these are ready to go ahead and pour in our silicone rubber. Now for our TIE fighters themselves, like I mentioned, we've painted all the exterior panels. I think they're solar panels, but I'm not exactly sure. So today we have to come back and go ahead and mask off all of those areas, and then we can come back next episode and probably paint them over, and then we can unmask, and hopefully TIE fighters will be done. Now for our silicone rubber, we're going to be using Umu 30, and this is pretty decent stuff. I bought this probably about 6 months ago though, so it's been sitting around in the garage a little bit too long, I have a feeling, but we're going to go ahead and use it anyway. We're going to try it out and see what happens. Now this is a part A and a part B mixture. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, so it should be pretty simple. We just need to go ahead and measure off exactly how much of each and make sure they match. Then we can mix them up and we can use it for our mold agents, so it should be pretty decent. I think what we're going to have to do first is we're going to grab some of our supplies. I've got some mixing sticks, accumulated some diorama building materials from Joe, so thank you, Joe, for these cups and whatnot. Now you're supposed to use a smooth side and flat based container. I don't have that, so we're going to make do with what we do have, which are just some basic old drinking cups. Not a big deal. Now we're going to go ahead and open up our Umu 30. Like I said, these are actually part A and a part B, and we need to go ahead and have an equal part of volume for A and for B. So I'm hoping that's going to be a pretty easy thing to measure out using these cups. Plus they're clear, so you can kind of see through them, and they have got those little ridges, so I think we're okay with that. Let's go ahead and grab our hobby knife here, and we're just going to open up the lid here for part A, and let's see how this looks. Okay, so it's a little viscousy, to be honest, probably a little too thick if you ask me. I don't remember it being this thick last time when I used it years ago. But again, this has been sitting in my garage for a little bit. Even though these were new, they might have a shelf life. I don't really know, but it's all good. We're going to mix it up and I'm hoping that it can still work just fine. Yeah, it's pretty thick. It looks almost like it started to dry. But again, maybe this is supposed to be this way. I don't know. I don't use this stuff very often. I've only used it one other time, but I remember it being a little bit more liquidy. It's very much like taffy. So I'm not really sure how this is going to work. When I used this before, back when I built my A6M2N float plane base, I remember this being a little bit more usable. This is pretty thick. I'm not really adept at using this material. This is the second time I've ever tried this product. Maybe if I start mixing it up a little bit more, I can get it to actually work. Now let's go ahead and open up the B part of this as well. Go ahead and slice that top open. Now we have to actually mix both of these about 2 minutes a piece. So we'll do that off camera though, so I don't bore you with it. B actually looks a lot better. Much easier to move, not so thick, not so viscousy. So yeah, I think this is going to be okay. So B should be fine. A seems really, really thick. So maybe the thinness of B is going to help with the thickness of A, and hopefully that'll kind of get everything working. So let's just go ahead and mix this up as well as we can. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of preliminary pours. I'm going to try my luck at trying to do some molding. And if that works, I'll come on back and I'll show you guys what I did. If it doesn't work, we're going to scrap the project and try something different for the base. So give me a minute. Let me see what I can do, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back, and it's been a hot minute or so, and I've actually made a couple of pours, and so far it's working. So I thought I'd go ahead and show you guys my process. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of part A right here in this cup. I've made sure to note where it actually comes up on the cup, so I can go ahead and pour the equal amount of B into this other cup right here. And once I have both of those as equal, I'll go ahead and pour them together and mix them up. So let's go ahead and pour a little bit of our part B right here. And I think this is going to be a decent last little bit. I'm going to use up both of these, so that's okay. But let's go ahead and pour that in here, and we'll give it a little bit of a mixture. Then we'll just pour them together. Now we have pink and blue materials here. When we mix them together, it turns into a kind of a purplish color. So that's how you know that it's fully mixed. Now, if you see streaks or clumps or anything like that of different colors, you know you haven't mixed it as thoroughly as you should. Probably should go over and do a little bit more. Make sure to scrape the sides, get all the mixture into the other pot so we can stir everything up. I think would be pretty good. It's a good idea to wear gloves though, guys, because this stuff gets everywhere. So now we're going to go ahead and mix it up here. As you can see, I'm actually using 2 mixing sticks because this stuff is super, super thick. Honestly, very much convinced that my part A had already started to dry out. but so far it's worked for my other 3 pours. So this one is going to be my 4th pour, just finishing off the last little bit of both A and B, and we'll be good to go. So if we try this again, we can buy a new batch and hopefully buy it a bit closer to when we're actually going to use it. So let's go ahead and just mix this up as thoroughly as possible, scraping the sides, making sure we can bring everything from the bottom to the top, mix everything up as best as we can. Boy, your arms get tired and my hands are already tired. Get everything a uniform color as best as we can. Once we get to a good point, we'll pour it into the mold and fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. All right, so we have this basically mixed up. Let's go ahead and pour it into our mold. As you can see, this does not look quite right, but again, I'm pretty convinced that my part A had dried out a little bit. So I think this is as good as we can get it. Let's go ahead and just pour everything out here into the mold. This is where it gets a little tricky. We're going to have to mix a little bit here on top of the mold itself. Because as you can see, well, we have a couple of different spots of different colors here, and that's not right. We're supposed to have everything a uniform color. So let's go ahead and just kind of mix it up here in the mold itself. And I'm going to spread this everywhere. I'm going to try to get it down around the edges. I'm going to try to get into every nook and crannies I possibly can. It's almost like spreading peanut butter in a way, but it's much thicker than that. So let's go ahead and just get it covering all the areas. And I'm going to try to bring it up to the edge of each of the different walls here for my mold. Just messing it up, trying to get it everywhere so that it does not leave any air pockets. And I think once this is kind of solidified, we hopefully will get a nice mold out of this piece. Yep, that looks pretty good. Again, this is really super thick stuff. I don't think it's supposed to be this thick, to be honest, but I've matched the ratios. And again, I think it's just the fact that mine was a little bit older and dried out a tiny bit. Let's go ahead and just finish this up and we'll set it off to the side. It takes about 6 hours to cure. Then we'll be back and well, we'll see how it goes. Now, like I said, it takes about 6 hours for those molds to fully cure. So while that is happening, we're going to go ahead and change gears over to masking. I want to go ahead and get some Tamiya masking tape and mask off all of the side panels to make sure that we are ready to come back next episode and start doing some painting. For masking, I have 2 different sizes of Tamiya tape. I've got 6mm and I've got 3mm. So this should go ahead and get us through the rest of the project here on the masking side of things. And I think we are ready to go ahead and just start at it. This is going to be tedious for sure. These are very tiny little models. These are 1/144 scale. So it's going to take a little bit of time and quite a bit of patience. So let's go ahead and jump into our first time lapse here, guys. Let's start masking off the TIE fighters and see what happens. All right, guys, so we are back. We have one TIE fighter basically masked. I thought about masking off the front of the actual little cockpit and then the top of the hatch, but I'm thinking now, nah, that's too tedious. So I'm going to come up with something else for that. We're just going to go ahead and stick to the side panels. That takes long enough, to be honest. So let's go ahead and move on to the other 2 TIE fighters. We got the TIE Advanced and the other fighter itself. Let's go ahead and mask off the side panels for that. And then we'll be back and I'll show you guys how the molds came out. And we'll call it quits. Let's go ahead and jump into that second time lapse, keep this going, and try to get the rest of the TIE fighters all messed up. All right, everybody. So we are back, and I want to go ahead and show you the molds that we have. It's been, well over 6 hours. It's been a full day of work. I came back here after work, and we're going to go ahead and pop open these molds, and we're going to see what these look like. So let's go ahead and make a little bit of an incision here and separate the mold from the sidewalls. And we'll go ahead and just start peeling off these sidewalls here of foam core. So I made it out of foam core, guys. It's super simple. You can just tear them apart cheap. You can rebuild them if necessary. So we're just going to go ahead and pull off all the sides, and then we'll be able to pull the mold up from around the base. So that should be pretty good. So last little bit here, let's go ahead and peel off the mold itself. And looks like we have, yep, look at that. So we do have a mold. We have our base. We have our negative mold right here using that silicone rubber. And the detail is actually pretty decent. So, okay, it worked. I'm relieved. Let's go ahead and open up the other one here. We're going to open up next the Y-wing version right here. Let's go ahead and just pull these sides clean off. This was actually the first pour I did. So you notice the color is a little bit different. I'm not sure why. I still made it equal 1-to-1 ratio, but for some reason it turned out to be blue rather than purple. Oh well, it still seemed to have worked. Let's go ahead and pull off all the sides, and then we should be able to pop this right off the base as well. And then we'll have a fully molded part. Sometimes it helps to take something there and push it between the silicone mold and the sidewall, just to kind of pry it open just a little bit. This shouldn't stick to it. It should just come right off at some point. So that is awesome. And then we'll just pop it off that base once I kind of get all this little bits and pieces cleared away. And as you can see, the part is actually still in the mold, so we can go ahead and just pry that right out. I have a little bit of some extra bits and pieces of silicone that I can just slice off with a hobby knife, so no big deal there. Give this a little bit of a flex here, and then we can pull that center section clean out, and there we go. So you can see we have a nice little mold from that part. So that's great. Wow, it turned out pretty nice as well. Let's go ahead and pull this next one out right like this, and again, looks like we have a nice successful mold. Awesome. Very, very cool. Again, I had a little bit of a short shot around the side, but again, that's okay. I should be able to make it work. And the last one here, this one is the Thai Advanced one. So let's go ahead and pull that apart. And there, wow, okay, that looks really, really cool. Let me get you a close up here and you can see some of the detail. I'm pretty pleased with these. These turned out to be really, really nice molds. Way better than I thought they were going to. And of course, we have our TIE fighters all masked off. There is a TIE Advanced as well. These turned out to be extremely tedious to go ahead and to mask. Again, though, we had to do it because I did not want to come back and have to try to hand paint all of those little details. This way, I think this is the best course of action. Now for paint, probably next episode we'll come in here and I'm going to try to use some Vallejo, maybe some gold gray, maybe some dark gold gray. I don't really know which color is going to look best. I might have to do a little bit of research online to see what looks best there and see what people recommend, but I think a gold gray might actually do the trick. So we'll go ahead and do a little research and we'll come back next episode and start doing some painting. So far, so good, guys. I am really, really happy with how this has turned out. Not only do the molds work out well, but we have our TIE fighters mostly masked. We do have to figure out what to do for the front canopy as well as the top hatch there. But you know what? I don't think that's going to be a big of a deal. I don't really want to try to mask all those little areas because they're just too tiny. And I don't really want to use liquid mask because I don't feel like it would get a really clean line. So I think we're going to go ahead and just figure that out next episode. As you can see though, these are really cool looking little models. They are tiny, so that's fine. And I think we are on the right track to go ahead and get this thing looking pretty cool. So next episode we'll be back and I'm going to hopefully try to get some resin so I could make some pours. And we're going to go ahead and do some painting on the TIE fighters. And well, we'll be well on our way to getting this project one step closer to being finished. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 4 for The Trench here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you soon.